everyone, and welcome to the STEM space. Natasha here, and today we have a special guest. So, this is Ryan Beltrán. He's an award winning filmmaker and founder of the nonprofit organization MakeWater. Ryan's mission is to empower students to become citizen scientists and tackle water issues collaboratively through innovative STEAM-based and environmentally focused curriculum and competitions. Ryan, is it awkward when people just talk about you while you're there?
A little bit, but yeah.
I'm going to keep going. All right. Ryan's passion for water technology and conservation began early on, inspired by his father's demonstration of water purification using an electric current. And I do want to ask you about that. He later developed the MakeWater open source water tech and educational program, which enables students, educators, and communities to experiment with DIY water purification technology through STEM-based learning. His dedication to empowering students and communities to become water heroes has earned him numerous accolades, and his innovative programs, such as the water purification experiment kits that students can use from home, continues to make a positive impact on individuals worldwide. So I'm super excited to talk to Ryan about his journey in developing MakeWater, his innovative work and vision for a more sustainable and equitable future through the promotion of STEAM education and water conservation. Welcome, Ryan. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Oh, that's funny that you mentioned that about like, hey, how are you feeling while I talk about you? Because I show films sometimes, and I just like, oh, here's my film, and then I just sit there while people are watching. I feel like nervous or people are, I don't know. So I that's funny that you mentioned like, how do you like
Yeah.
being talked about in front of people? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Cause I will interview like career chat guests, and usually they're off the screen, but you were like
Yeah.
right there when I was reading it. I was like, is it just like weird when someone's just like talking about all your things? But I am so excited to have you on. And first, let's tell everyone, where are you located?
Well, thanks for having me on. I am located in San Antonio, Texas.
And where are you originally from? Were you born and raised in San Antonio?
Actually born and raised here, but I've spent a few years up in New York City and in Austin, but I'm living here in San Antonio.
Awesome. And in this bio, you talk about your dad. So kind of what's your background and how did you end up now doing MakeWater? But I'm more curious, like, what's your story? Where are you from?
Yeah. So honestly, my dad is like this self-made man from Mexico. He's an entrepreneur, kind of, one of those came with like, $20 in his pocket. And he would sell industrial supplies and maintenance parts to like schools, hospitals, and even like water utilities. And growing up as a kid, I would go with him, especially in the summer when there was not much to do. I would go tag along with my dad, and I'd get to see like the behind the scenes of how like big facility buildings would work, and I'd see water systems as part of that, like drains and pumps and purification setups and HVAC stuff, and all that sort of sprinkled into what I do today. Yeah.
So not a typical background. Most kids don't have access to that. Was that interesting to you as a kid, or were you just like, whatever?
It was a mix. I think sometimes I was like, whatever, but I liked, I got into photography. So I'd take my camera around, I'd snap photos of interesting things, and I'd do video too. So I like both photo and video. So I would always find something exciting in the moment, even if it maybe didn't seem exciting. But, the more I look back, I did enjoy that time. Those were like fun, awesome, memorable moments going with my dad to visit all these customers. And yeah, and I didn't know it at the time, but I learned a lot through that. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about filmmaking, because I know that's a big passion that you have. So is that how you got started, was making films?
Yeah. So it's a weird crossover. I studied film in college. I ended up getting an internship very luckily with one of my heroes, Michel Gondry, who was he did a lot of music videos, and he's an Oscar Award winner for doing Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Oh, yeah.
Really fun movie. And so I got to go up to New York and see again behind the scenes of how big productions were done. And over time, like I really got into sort of documentary or like story, like in the moment, maybe more journalistic style of filming. and I would go travel like I've gone to Mexico to film farmers. I've done, protests, things like that. And little by little, like I would come back and visit family. And I was also a techie, so I was a little bit of a lot of things, but I like computers and tech. And my dad one day was like, "Hey, there's this really interesting way of purifying water with just a current of electricity." And uh, it just sort of was one of those things that I got fascinated by it. I was like, how come I haven't heard of this before? Even though it had been used in big processes. But I was like, the filmmaker in me was like, there's a story here, and I wanted to be a part of it and tinker with it. So it just checked a lot of boxes, and I mean that was many years ago. Yeah. So that is sort of the very beginning of how I got how film got into the water and nonprofit that we have today. There's a lot more to tell between now and back then, but yeah.
Well, I'm curious to know more of that story. So you make this connection, right? He's showing you that you can filter water and you're
Yeah.
like, there's a story. So what was the story? Did you like go
Yeah.
after it and what came from there?
Yeah. So the story was, I was like, is there a way to get this technology out there for more people to know about it and be a part of it? And I saw myself going, hey, maybe I can tell the story of this. And by telling the story, more people will become aware or participate. And along that journey, I created a startup around the technology, but I don't know if anybody watches Shark Tank or anything, but I learned real
I love it.
fast that like I didn't have a product, I had an idea. And as I went with it as a like hobby, kind of as a passion project, I some of my friends were like, it sounds like you want to run a nonprofit and not a for-profit, because I really
Mhm.
just wanted it out there. And once I made that sort of like click of like this should be more of a nonprofit, we took that route, and I got connected with like our water utility, and they told me like, hey, you're good at filmmaking and storytelling and inspiring or engaging like youth to what you're doing, and you kind of self-taught with this technology because you're passionate. This is a great way to catalyze education. So that was another like turning moment for me, was that we could use this innovation as a way to inspire students to learn something, especially something in STEM or STEAM field. Yeah.
That is cool. And what is MakeWater now? Is it curriculum and kits for schools? Is that the main product that you are putting out there?
Yeah. So initially, I kept tinkering with the kit or with the process. And over time, I learned about maker spaces. I learned about Arduinos. And so we
Mhm.
made this kit that was codable. And I got connected with SAW, our water utility, and I would challenge students to like tinker with it and see if they can improve it in some way and be part of like this story and part of like helping innovate it and make it better. And they would do that every year. And then COVID hit, and these kits that are codable had 3D printed parts. Students would add sensors to it. It became harder to utilize when students were at home. So I switched to like, how can I, and I'm going to get to your question, like what are products and stuff, but I switched to like, how can we make this like fun experiment doable at home? And we first did a scavenger hunt. Can we make it with stuff around the house? And then after that, I found like, hey, can I send some components in an envelope to them to do the experiment? And then from there, it evolved into like these kits that fit in an envelope, run this purification process. And we then built curriculum around that, so students could be self-guided through doing that experiment. So we do have curriculum available, and that's like, I feel like that's one part of our nonprofit, is that here's a kit, you can do it on your own. And then there's this other part of like storytelling and like being part of a story and part of like engagement, and that kind of fits into our competition style. Like we
Mhm.
actually have students like through Makerspace and that realm, I learned a lot about robotics competitions. And I was like, it's really cool that students get inspired to get hands-on, tinker, and go to these competitions that kind of like really make it easy to have a call to action or something engaging to do. So we kind of took that model of like, hey, let's try to do that with this hands-on water purification set, and let's see if we can do competitions. And that's sort of this way that we're growing. And in that way, we can actually tell stories of people building. What are they doing? What is their story? And so that's kind of how we're growing, with at the same time having this curriculum also available.
That's really cool. And one thing I'll say about water purification is I've done this activity with students in the
Uh-huh.
traditional sense, or if you like search, give me a STEM water purification challenge, right? And
Mhm.
it's usually like take a water bottle, put some dirt in it, put some, like you're trying to
Mhm.
like build a filter with stuff and it never
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
Like it always like filters some things. And this just sounds really cool because you're doing it in a more like systematic way. You're using technology, they're learning the science behind it, and it's not like try some random materials and see if the water is more clear.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've heard. I know that experiment, and it's widely done. And it's similar, but but the outcome is like there's a lot more little engaging moments in that you build a circuit. There's an LED light that kind of shows you if you built it correctly, and that's like an aha moment of like,
That's
oh,
cool.
energy's going through this. And it's also great for different age ranges. Like our these envelope kits allowed us to go to elementary school as well. We were mostly like middle school, high school. So yeah, that is one of those like changing it up, and you get a C in this clear cup. That's the only thing that we can't fit in an envelope. But if you have a clear cup, you can see the pollutants start to separate. I say pollutants, but it's really just tempera paint and a little bit of salt. And you get that visual. And as a filmmaker, that was what got me. It's like the visual of seeing the pollutants separate and the clear water come through.
Yeah.
So I think about it in that way. Like as when I went to school, I was more of a visual person too. Like I was great at things that I could wrap my head around visually, and so I
Mhm.
apply that to this as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think that's why the STEM education movement has kind of picked up because we use the way traditional science has been is like memorize these vocabulary words, read a
Yeah.
textbook, and even just like online simulations trying to like mimic open and closed circuits are nothing compared to doing it yourself and
Hmm.
seeing it and
Hmm.
trying different things. And that's why I love this kit and how you've scaled it or adapted it to different grades. And so if there's teachers listening that are doing elementary or if they're doing middle school, it sounds like there's different versions based on what grade level they teach, right?
Yeah, yeah. So we and I got to give a shout out to a Montessori educator that we worked with. Her name is or her business is Blooming with Birdie, and she's a Montessori educator. She helped us. Since I'm not an educator, I wanted to hire somebody professional that knew that realm to help us build the curriculum around it. So we built something for elementary focus, and then another one for middle school, high school. But really, it's like middle school and up. Like anybody could really do it. Adults could use it as well and enjoy it just the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about World Water Day. So
Sure.
I know
Yeah.
that's something you wanted to bring up. What is it? And then connect it to MakeWater.
Yeah, so World Water Day is just as it sounds, like a day to celebrate water, maybe learn more about water, or just like think about water in general if you're not really like stepping back and thinking about it. And we're going to utilize it as a way to kind of like let the world know what we're doing. Last year was a big year for us for growth and like building and putting together our new website and our new curriculum. And this year is all about like action and getting it out there. So we wanted to use World Water Day in a competition style, just like I love. And we're going to challenge students, educators, anybody to really share a personal water story and post it on social media. And we're going to get the first 1,000 people that kind of have a pretty cool like story and give out one of our envelope kits. And this is what they kind of look
Oh,
like
it's
here.
literally just an
It
envelope. Okay.
literally is an envelope. In that way, so that they don't have a kit, they can participate in future competitions. So in the future, we're going to do more like have a kit and participate in some way. But this is a way to get just some kits in the hands of students that are interested. And we have some prizes. Some top prizes are a 3D printer for a classroom. And as well as I want to do, if there's a really great like story that somebody came up with, I would love to work with them on a short video, like a short film possibly, because I always love to kind of cross over that filmmaking storytelling that I'm so passionate about
Yeah.
to this program. Yeah.
And when you're saying like stories about water, are we talking about access to water? Because there's been like a lot of news stories recently about contaminants in water. Is that
Yeah.
the kind of angle that you're looking for?
I think we want, since we're starting out early, like with this, we want to keep it wide and just keep it like, what is a personal water story? And
Okay.
it can be about that. It can be just about, like, for instance, I instantly think growing up, going to Mexico to visit like my dad's side of the family down there, they would have all of them would have water tanks on their houses. And I remember specifically them being very ration. They would ration their water
Mm.
because they would only get so much water a week. And I remember that just stuck with me. So that's like a personal water story and things like that. As in depth as that, or as you know, I want the student or youth or even the educator that wants to participate to contemplate something that maybe comes up and try to go with maybe the first idea, because maybe that's the best sometimes.
Yeah, and the other piece of this, a lot of us in the United States are very privileged to have access to water, and we don't think about, I turn on the tap and I take a shower and I boil water for my spaghetti, and it's always
Mhm.
there.
Yeah.
And you and I originally met with that competition, SI Smart, and we
Hmm.
challenged the students to tackle water and water sustainability. And one thing I remember is them initially like, why is this a problem? Like, why would this be a challenge topic for the city of San Antonio? And then in
Hmm.
talking with the provider of water saws that provides water, and how passionate those professionals are, but also trying to promote this idea that you guys, we take it for granted, but it's not always going to be there if we're not protecting it. And so my question is, for teachers listening, how can we help students maybe better understand the challenges around water and not just taking it for granted that it just open the faucet, there's the water?
Yeah, so I think that's part of what I want to do with MakeWater is I try to find that passion a student has and have it connect to this kit in some way. Because just like myself, I was passionate and self-taught because I just kept wanting to find out more and go down a rabbit hole and tinker. And when we do these competitions in the future, or like when I work with the student group or classroom and they get the kits, uh, sometimes I have them go into different categories of like, are you interested in just like purifying water, like the simplest one, and taking data and sharing about that? Are you interested in maybe coding? Because our advanced kits have coding. So here's a way to apply, what you're doing or what you're passionate about if you're passionate about coding. A third one is hardware, which these kits can do, which is we say, hey, can you tinker or switch something around with this hardware? Like change the electrode types. Like we use aluminum electrodes. You could use different ones. In the codable kits, you could use 3D printed components that students would change up, make better. Some even started to do a 3D printed water filter, which was really crazy and cool.
Whoa.
It's the resolution in the 3D printers isn't there yet, but it's really cool to have like a concept of maybe one day it could be that like fine tuned that you could do something. Um, and then lastly, I have this like fourth category, which is just an out of the box category, like the arts. Like if you want to make a song, if you want to make a video, like I love applying my passion of filmmaking to this.
Yeah.
And I sort of see this grander picture that if you are, concerned about climate change or something like that, you could potentially, not know where to start to even try to chip away at it or do something towards that. And we would love to set ourselves up in this program to say, hey, by participating, you are moving the ball forward on something that could eventually ripple out and to be something much bigger and affect people around the world. So some students in the past, at a recent event that I went to, a teacher came back and was like, 2 of the students in your that did your competition went on to environmental science at the university, and they said they really loved your program. And I love hearing stuff like that. And I know we're not going to get through to everyone, but it's those ones that like there's when I do these workshops, there's some of those students that come back later again to see their kit like a little further along after they leave it purifying. Those are the ones we really want to reach out to, and see if we can make a better future together. Yeah.
That I love that. And two things I picked up. One is I like how you're bringing in all these different elements. So you mentioned like the hardware, the coding, but also the storytelling and showing students all these different sides to what we call STEM or STEAM. It's not just robotics. Often
Mhm.
robotics and STEM are synonymous. Like they think, oh, I'm a STEM person if I'm in a robotics competition. And you're
Mhm.
like, well, there's environmental science, right? And if you care about people and making an impact in the world, STEM is also for you. And so I
Yeah.
love that you're using your passion for storytelling to help make this awareness of all these different options for kids and they would never have an idea about. And then the second piece is the citizen science. This is something that's like a
Mhm.
buzzword in education and citizen science and how can kids do real science? And your program has an element of that where maybe the technology that they're creating could someday be used in other organizations to help the world. So tell me a little bit more about that and how you view the citizen science idea.
Yeah. So the citizen science aspect is that we got to this point where the kits where I wanted every time a kit got used that something got moved forward. There were times where the kit was used, students would like really get engaged and then maybe not know where to go next. And that like as a learning process for me, I would be like, how can we make things better? How can we keep them engaged? And that's how we came up with like competitions and even citizen science aspect of these new kits have like a sheet on the back that you can fill out the data of what you're seeing, and we do it as simple as visual like cues that you see the water like on 1 to 5, how clear is it getting, and it's gonna advance as we move forward. But we want them to share that with us, and over time we're gonna make a portal with everybody's information for anybody to access, as well as different innovations that students have, media, things that maybe they took photos of their kits or their stories. So we like this idea of citizen science because that adds this layer of you giving back, you participating in something bigger, and that's another just aspect of feeling like rewarded for doing something that is for everybody.
And I think students really love connecting with other students. So this portal idea, I really like it because they'll say,
Mhm.
"Oh, there's San Antonio, Texas is collecting data, but then like Jacksonville, Florida, New York City,
Mhm.
and you can have all these different places that are working on the same project."
Mhm.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I really can't wait for that to really get a little bit more robust, because we kind of work in this like open source realm where anything is, you can take it, go tinker with it, make it your own style, share it, and we want to keep it that way with everything. And so if a student shares what they're doing, you can pick up where they left off and maybe continue moving, like they pass the baton and you can continue going forward with it.
Yeah.
That's how I would love to see this grow.
And one thing I really like is a lot of times STEM projects that we do in our classroom are very closed. So, like
Mhm.
the water filter example, you kind
Mhm.
of build something and you've figured out, okay, this water's more clear, done. But
Yeah.
here you're showing like the development of technology and how it takes lots of teams, multiple tries, and the creativity that's involved in
Mhm.
engineering. What Yeah, it's just really interesting because your background's, like, in film, but, like,
Yeah,
behind
right?
you is a whole workshop. Like, I'm seeing, like, tools and stuff, and so, like, give me a message here that, like, students can take away with STEM has, like, all these stereotypes, and you have to be a certain type of person to be in STEM. What is STEM to you?
STEM to me is just taking your passion and applying it to something. And STEM, especially when you put in, or STEAM, when you put in the arts in there, it really broadens that category. It really gets more people involved. And I feel like this day and age, so many people have so many different skill sets. Like it's never just one. You can kind of do multiple. And I feel like you can thrive in STEAM if you kind of understand that. But also just having something you're passionate about is huge. So I can say that for myself is like, if you find that one thing you're passionate about, like stick with it. And if you're an educator, I feel like cultivating that is just so great. When you see somebody that's passionate about something, you make that connection between their passion and something that maybe they can really just thrive and grow into, and they do it on their own. That's a great side of it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and your passion. And it's a topic that water, it just doesn't sound very interesting from like,
Mhm.
I'm drinking water right now,
Yeah.
but there are
Mhm.
so many like layers to it and the human side of water. And so I encourage teachers to check out your website,
Yeah.
see what all the different kits are. Do you have any, like last words or message you want to share with our listeners?
Just listen for our World Water Day competition coming up, because we're really going to be sharing a lot of news stories, our new collaborations. These kits are actually made at the Lighthouse for the Blind, so they're put together
Oh,
by
wow.
people with disabilities. There's all these avenues for you to participate, and we would love to just have more people participate and have their feedback too. They help us grow and make this better. So we're really looking forward to it. And thank you so much for having me and letting me share my story. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ryan. And for now, STEM Space out.